Good afternoon and welcome back to House Transportation on Wednesday afternoon, the 29th of January, 2025. We're having a little bit of an adjustment to our agenda for the next few minutes. Rob has, sorry, I guess I should have gone by. Rob White, Project Delivery Bureau Director with the agency, is going to walk 4/5 of our new members through these tremendous binders that are become part of the law, the T-bill, and tell us how to look at them and how to use them and how to look at them. So I really appreciate Rob coming in and give us a little quick tutorial, and then we're going to jump into this afternoon's presentations.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me again. I'm Rob White. I'm the Project Delivery Bureau Director at the Agency of Transportation in the Highway Division. Once you hear from me, you will hear from Carolyn Coda, who heads up the Structures program, which she's going to dive into some of the information into this large book we call the White Book. I didn't bring the other one. I'm just talking today about the White Book.
you just assume, oh, we're gonna pave, might be a couple of little things, but you know, when you're adding lights and all that. It's gotten tied in with paving. Is that the first thing that happened or? Yes,
think it was gonna
you
be
get
a
my
different
question.
I thought maybe it
Yeah,
would be in a different section.
maybe in a different section, yeah.
So an interesting thing here to consider is whenever we have any type of roadway project within project delivery, if there is a rail crossing within a certain distance of that project, we try to pick it up. So there are rail crossing projects that the rail section does on their own, but there's also those crossings that we might pick up with a project as well. And you are correct that it does complicate it a little bit. I see Chief Engineer.
Yes, if I could share.
Yes.
So Jeremy Lee, Chief Engineer, I would say this is an anomaly. So this was originally included in part of our larger paving project 4 or 5 years ago. Due to the way and some other constructability issues that had to be pulled out. So this is actually just a continuation of that previous project. So really bad example to look at from.
Well, good catch. What we're trying to do right now is just understand what these mean and what the titles and the pieces and how the book is broken down. And then as each of them come into their sections, we're going to dig in. And then for you as your constituents, you'll know how to dig into what's going on and you'll have a contact and piece. So we will do some digging in each section, but I really want to make sure right now we're just understanding what it shows us, not diving into everybody wants to dive into a project, but not yet. Well, you can do that within each section. And then you can do even more of it on your own time with representatives from the agency.
And so I have
2 points still.
I just have two other things I want to mention about the white book. Yeah, generally is once you get by these specific project designated sheets, which is the 3 per page, you will see at the end of those sections what are labeled state fiscal year 2026 D&E. These are lists of projects that are potentially using basically development funds only. They don't show any construction funds. Again, I don't think these are very useful for you guys in what you're trying to understand. The 3 per sheet project review sheets are the most important and carry the most information. The other thing I wanted to mention is at the end of the white book, there is a section that shows what's called the 10G reports. And you will hear each of our program managers talk about 10G reports. And so these reports were asked for by the legislature quite some time ago. There was a slight change last year in those reports. So previously there was only 3 different reports. Now there is 4. The first one is any project that is going to show up in this book for the first time. So if you go there, you can look, you know your towns, and you can look and say, oh, here's some projects that are going to show up for the first time in the book. The last change report is any project that is not going to show up on the book anymore. It is basically complete. So just in case you say, hey, I know I have this project in Marshfield, and you go and look and say, oh my God, I don't find it. You can look there and that might be a project that is actually coming off the books because it is complete. The other 2 10G reports really try to nail down a major change in the estimate or the cost of the project. And the 2 reports have different thresholds, but they're basically looking at funding. And so each program, when we dive into it, whether it's paving, town highway bridge, whatever it may be, we will go over the projects that are on those reports and try to at least answer some questions there. Our program managers are not going to go through each individual project in the white book. They're going to basically take what Secretary Flynn did today and bring it one level down closer to those projects and talk about in each program, what is the amount of money that's in that program and what is that going to get us for projects that we're going to work on in the coming year.
And then if you want to dig into the next level down of what's actually going on in your area or project, there will be a project manager or person under that division that you can then contact outside of this room. Is that fair to?
You got it. Exactly.
They'll explain to you every piece of where the money's going, what the plan is. It's not our goal to review every project inside the committee with 11 other people or 10 other people listening and watching. You dig into your projects outside a committee, but understanding how it works and the bigger picture and how much money and how they roll up. And we always stray into some of the bigger projects, but this will give you the ability to get a hold of everybody that you need to know what's going on in your respective districts and other districts, if that's what you're being asked about. But
Yep.
did you have still have a question? No, well, I guess you haven't gotten yet, so.
I do. So year added 2018, it's still in the book, so it's still being worked on, some portion of that project? Or what's the 218 year added? It wasn't done in 218, right?
Can you tell
On
me?
Berry City, I'm still on that one, that's a bad example.
Oh, but the idea you're saying that this is why this information is there.
So it started, but it's still in the book, so it's still ongoing.
Yeah, that project was added as a new project in 2018, and the development of that project is ongoing.
Okay,
And it appears from this for that project that FY 25, which is the current year that we're in, is where the construction monies were going to start to be used. So that project would start probably this spring. And then the majority of the funds are in 2026. And so it would go through all of next summer.
okay.
And those are the questions I hear people go to the next saying, has it gone out to bid? Did you get any responses? That you'll do with whomever the project manager is. So there are other people, I heard that a lot from people that have said, and they'll go to the project and say, did you get any answers on it or something to that effect? Has it gone out to bid yet? Or those type of questions? That is the level you'll go into, outside of here.
Yeah, you can-
point you in the direction.
You can start with the program managers, if you feel more comfortable with them first, and then they can point you to the program manager if it's a specific project question.
Representative Casey?
Oh, I'm good,
Oh, good, okay. So each section is broken down that way. You'll have a lot of these tabs, you're gonna hear from the person who's responsible for the tab. And I think that's where we're gonna go next. I don't know, Rob,
Yep.
you're going further, Carolyn. You're coming up.
So let's see if we have technical. Because I heard that's the fun part. It's not part is not good, so I don't,
So what section are we talking about in structure?
I gotta turn the page.
When we get the,
That's me.
I was gonna say, for fellow members, a week or two before town meeting, you're gonna hear other colleagues, representatives that are gonna come to you and say, what can you tell me about my area? What can you tell me about projects? They're not gonna know what you can ask, but you can if you want to be valuable to your fellow colleagues. This is a great place to share their information about their towns. I get a lot of people that come to me because I'm on transportation and ask me and to walk them through the book, et cetera. It might be helpful while Carolyn's doing her piece. I see Representative Pouch nodding. I'm sure people come to you and say, and you literally go to the book. Now, the book is also online, in effect, through the map, which I find sometimes faster, but this gives you, that people like to see the piece out. And I know that in my second and third year, I got a lot of questions before town meeting. Nobody bothered my first year. Now I get questions. You'll hear the Milton guy.
It's up there, Carol.
That is on Route 2, isn't it? Going over the top of the interstate or not?
Yes, it's one of my private joys.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome to committee, and it's all yours now.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Coda. I'm the structures program manager. It's actually structures, and I actually have the hydraulics team with me as well. So welcome. Just for your information, the picture down below is the Brattleboro Hinsdale Bridge.
Mhm.
And then up above is a deck rehabilitation project in Royalton. So I'm going to talk about the funding splits for structures projects, as well as some funding source distribution. We're going to talk about our 26 budget, the interstate bridge program, the state bridge, highway bridge program, and the town highway bridge program. In the past, we've always talked a little bit about our accelerated bridge program. I have some pictures from the July 2024 new flood projects, as well as some completed projects that we've accomplished this past season. So Our interstate bridge program, it funds all the structures within our Vermont interstate corridor, including including town highway bridges, or state bridges crossing over the interstate. It's a shared funding, typically 90% federal and 10% state. Our state highway bridge program funds our bridges, large culverts 6 feet or greater, retaining walls that are also on our state highway system with a shared funding of 80% federal funds and 20% state. We also have our ER permanent projects. These are projects from the 23 flood as well as the 24 flood, and those are funded at 81.08% federal and 18.92% state. And then we have our town highway bridge program. These fund federally eligible bridges on our class 1, 2, and 3 town highways. The shared funding, it's typically it's 80% federal and 10% state and 10% local share. However, there are statutes that allow for reduction in the local share of sometimes 5%, sometimes all the up to 7.5%. So, and then the state picks up that extra share. It's always though 80% federal funding. So this is our budget for the interstate bridge. It just kind of shows that we have $42.2 million that are federal funds. And then we have $3.3 million, which are the TIB bond funds, for a total of it's about 45 plus million. And then in our state highway bridge program, which includes those ER projects, 61.8 million are federal funds. We have 4.6 million that comes from the T fund and another 10.2 million that's coming from the TIB fund. And then we have this local piece, it's about 2%. There's some projects, state highway bridge projects, where some of the communities have to pay for certain maybe water lines or some infrastructure that they have to pay 100% share of that work. So that's why there's that small amount. And then on the town highway bridge program, we have 31.7 million that is federal funded, 3.6 million that's TID bond, and then because the towns do have a local share, it's about $2.5 million from the local communities. So as you can just see about the structures program and how it's trended over the years. Back in 2008, we were at about, $45 million. In 2010, it was, up to 60. But then, of course, come Irene, our funding increased. In 2015, it was up to 140 million, and then it started to go down again. Fixed all those bridges from Irene. Things were pretty much steady at 100 million. And then 2023, it comes up a little bit. And then the 24 budget, 25 budget, we're up to that 140 to 160. This year, we're at about 160 million. Last year was 165 million. So, and this is because we have, we added 24 ER projects. In 2022, we added some more bridge projects to our program. So that's why this has increased. So if we look at our structures program, we have $161.2 million for bridges. We have 159 projects are funded, 26 are emergency projects. And if someone could tell me how to get rid of that. And our spending, and then 70 projects are funded for construction, and our spending has decreased by like 3.8 million or 2.3%, 2.36% down from last year. So let's just quickly talk about our interstate bridge program. And in your book on this presentation says tab 5B. So in the white book, tab 5B talks about the interstate bridge program. So 45.5 million, we've got 22 projects funded. There are 9 projects funded for construction, and one of them is a bi-state project, which is the Hartford West Lebanon Bridge over the Connecticut River. And then we have 6 what I call bridge maintenance preservation projects. So a lot of projects that have the prefix BM, that is our bridge maintenance program. That is within my program, and it helps kind of keeps our bridges going until we can get that project out there. They're smaller funded projects, usually $1,500,000, $2 million to do some preservation. So in the program that we're proposing, our spending is down 10 million, so it is down 18% from last year. We have some large projects going on. We have the one that I showed you on that first slide, which is the rehabilitation of bridges 26 north and south on I-89. We're hoping we'll be spending about $9 to $10 million in 26. We've got some large culvert replacement on I-91 in Linden, which will spend about $5 million. That is a progressive design build project. In Springfield, we are starting what we call a CMGC project. It is replacement or rehabilitation of 4 structures north and southbound at the interchange in Springfield. This is a very large project. Then we have the one in New Hampshire. We've got a deck replacement that we're quickly we just programmed it this past year, and we hope to have it replaced on in next summer or late summer. We have a fairly rehab of a culvert on 91, a couple different culvert projects, and then we're just winding down, finishing up that Bridge 29 in Richmond over the interstate. So there's still some money in the budget for that.
Are those, the massive 91, I don't get that far down south very often, but one was huge, high in the air on 91 interstate bridge that took several years, it seemed like. Are we mostly done moving north up on 91 of those bridges, or I'm talking about, I think it's what?
You're talking about Rockingham?
I think that might.
The big one in Rockingham?
Is that all done?
That bridge is completely done, pretty much closed out. I don't know if it's been removed from the program yet, but it's closed. But now we're working our way north.
And
One of
that's-
the comments that was said, we talk about the infrastructure of our interstate, and the interstate, that section of the interstate was built like early 60s, 65, and some of our older bridges, and you can see that we're slowly replacing a lot of the bridges as we go north from Brattleboro up north. And this involves four different structures right there at 91. It is it's about a $70 million construction project over several years. So we'd only be spending so much every year, but total, we are slowly working our way north.
Slowly working our way.
Yeah.
So then we see that amazing piece of bridge washing machinery hanging that far over in the air, washing underneath of that thing, or what?
Oh, you're talking about Rockingham?
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
It's just.
I mean, it's just higher.
Yeah.
Snooper. The snooper goes underneath and they inspect it. I do not do snooper work. I let others do that. Let's see. So this is Westminster. This was a project we just finished. North and southbound, it was a deck rehab. This would have been north or south of Springfield, but anyways, Bridge 20, further south. But again, this was a project, and we'll talk about it. It shows up in the 10G report that we were talking about, that Rob was talking about earlier. So let's just talk about quickly. We've got, if you notice, most of the new projects on the 10G report are BM projects, bridge maintenance projects. We only programmed, that one project, Brookfield, this past year. And then we programmed a scoping project in Richmond and again, it's one of these larger projects, Bridge 56, 57, 58, and 59, north and south, to evaluate what we can do there because those bridges are all close together. And there's an interchange involved, so we're starting to think about scoping that. And then you'll do notice that we have 2 projects that they were new projects, and then we canceled the projects, BM projects, and those are because they were just supposed to be like a like a mill and fill on the decks, and there was a paving project that went through, and they took care of it, so we just removed it from our program.
Right, because you wouldn't want to have canceled next to Swanton now.
Okay,
Representative
Are
Fauci.
those Richmond bridges the ones over the river, over,
they're the ones, those bridges are over the interchange, the ones over the river, over the railroad, over a couple town highways.
Representative Burke.
Two questions. One is bridge number 10, the one that goes over Canal Street, Brattleboro, is that the south, it's south of the
Oh, the bridge number 10, that one is the one that goes over to the, they're working on it right now. Goes over to a housing development, the town highway over. I don't know if it is.
yeah, I
Canal
think
Street
it's,
or
I
not.
think it's the one on Canal Street.
Okay.
It's south of the Bridge to Nature, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
it could be, yeah, it's just a maintenance project. It's just, we had a,
That's what I
they
thought.
narrowed it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to comment, I'm sorry, Representative Corcoran isn't here because I don't know if anybody's noticed the beautiful bridge that goes over the West River, which is a singular design bridge, and received a lot of flack from some members of this committee because it was sort of a special bridge that spent more money on, but it's a beautiful bridge and a sort of a gateway to Vermont going up Route 30. And if you ever have a chance, you're not going to notice it if you're on the highway. But
right.
if you get off on Route 30 and you drive north, you'll notice it. It's a very exciting project that was opened in 2017 and the governor came down and it was a big deal.
So, completed projects on the interstate, we have this Burlington BM project, so it's completed because another project that got programmed and then we canceled it. So it never was really done. So it shows up in the complete, on the 10G report as being completed. And then we have the Fairleigh St. Johnsbury, it was a bunch of rehabs, preservation projects, bridges in one project that got completed this past summer. The Westminster bridges 21 North and South that we talked about, and then there was another rehab in Westminster on a couple bridges that were done. So this is where these are these expanded costs, the 10G expanded costs that Rob was talking about. So this one is estimated costs increased by more than $5 million or by more than 75% from the estimate in 2025. So I have on this list, the Colchester NH 028-1-31 project, just for your information. This is the new bridges that are being installed at exit 17. And it also includes ramp work, some new signals. And there was an increase of approximately $8.2 million. And this was due to when the project was advertised. There was some competition, which was good, but it just reflects the inflation, material costs, labor costs have all gone up on our project. So that's one of the reasons why that price is larger. The Hartford BM project, this also had an increase of $1.8 million from its original estimate. And this was basically due because we decided to replace the joints on the bridge. We added extra work to the project. Once they got into it, it was more involved than they thought. It also reflects what the bid price was that we got originally. And then the Springfield, the IM 091-183, that's that CMGC project that I was talking about. So there was an increase from 25 of about $22 million. The more you start working on your projects and you're in that engineering mode and you're looking at all the different alternatives and you start diving into what those actual costs are going to be, the price, our estimate got higher, but it's more reflective of what we've been seeing today with our bid estimates, what the contractors bid on projects. And then lastly, the Twine project.
Sorry.
I thought.
So if it's in the planning and you're in the bidding and whatnot, and it goes up by $22 million, we haven't actually committed entirely yet to necessarily, we haven't actually started the construction, et cetera.
Right.
We build into then, we know we'll have to revise the book moving forward, and we'll have to revise the budget moving forward, and it's one of the ones that would be considered that might be put off to construction or not.
Right.
But it hasn't, we don't have now that like the top one
That's
issue,
under construction.
like it's already under construction in just the top, and I think the second one is under construction.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so there's $10 million that were already in the ground and we can't really turn back from. That when, just to remind the members of what we have to do long-term in this committee, just on those two projects alone, there's $10 million. We're already committed and we're in the ground. And we can't stop, in effect, to some degree or another. That amount of money's got to come from some other project or some other bump. And correct me if I'm wrong, I see you shaking your head over there. For us, looking at what we're trying to do for the entire program and the entire direction, with the lack of money that's coming into transportation, with our growth, the rate, we have to finish, and we can't leave projects unfinished across the book. And that's going to have some significant influence on what we can get done. And we saw this massive cutback on paving from the secretary's presentation this morning. $10 million just in two projects right there because of this report we asked for and whatnot. And you can't bump them. You have to absorb them and figure them out within the project now. Is that fair?
That's correct. This particular project is a CMGC project, which means it's actually going to start construction this summer. So we have a contractor and a on board already. And what's nice about CMGC, they work, they have an independent. I personally have not been involved personally in a CMGC project. I think Jeremy's been involved with them, but it really, you work on the prices with the contractor, and we have an independent, hired an independent estimator to work on those prices. So they work and they do work plans, and they do anticipate starting some, what they call work packages, this like crossovers, things like that. So they would start working on it. And like you said, that $22 million, that has been spread out over the 4 or 5 years. But you're right. I mean, there is, unfortunately, on the interstate, those are probably some of our more complex projects because of, you have to maintain traffic. And a lot of them are over, like the Rockingham one you were talking about, over, they're very high up in the air. So when they're very high up in the air, it's a longer, more expensive bridge to construct. You're so right.
So is that the total increase in cost of the project? Or is it the transportation funds that, in other words, $22 million increase? Is that 90%? Is that our
That's total.
10%?
It's total.
That's total. So our 10% of that is 2.2 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you are correct. When we
Yeah.
have changes in the value of a project like that, we have to find that money someplace. And so it usually means that we're going through the budgets and we're looking for projects that aren't going to construction. Those are the only ones that we sort of have flexibility on. And we'll have to find a way to either move those to another year or whatever we need to do to accommodate those projects. But you're right, when we're in construction, now this is a little different. This is CMGC. So this is sort of it's a way of taking the design process and the construction process and put it together. So it looks like we're spending construction funds, but we may not be actually expending construction funds at that point. That makes sense.
And this is only projects that have been up by over 5 million.
Or
This doesn't-
75% from
This doesn't include all of the projects that went up by however much. We're just highlighting some of the bigger ones by asking for this. We're not looking to try to make them go through every single item in the book and report every single one, but these are the idea of highlighting some of the big ones. And the amount of money is, if you add up all the other ones together, please represent that.
Yeah, thanks. And these are good to sort of highlight some of the challenges, I guess. My question is, I think this is my third year here, certainly maybe the first year was this inflation, kind of a paradigm shift of like costs and but I guess, are we at a point now where we understand the cost structures that have changed and the rates and all that? Where are we going back to projects that have already been priced and saying, oh, let's apply the new knowledge to it? So is it fair to say the ones in here have had that sort of second or third look and, trying to come up with our best guesstimates?
We are working, that is a yes, we are working. I can't say that every single project has that, inflation into it but I asked my project managers, I'm like, you've got to be better. We've got to apply factors. We've got to look at, if we're working on this project today, and we know it's not gonna be built for another 5 years, we have to have some inflation there. We have to have some more information. And we just hired it's called a data analyst position, but George Lindley, who's working directly in our structures group, but working for the highway division as a whole. He's been looking at numbers. He has provided some great data to the chief engineer's office regarding inflation and what has been going on with our prices. He's seen significant increase in our costs. And some of the projects that we advertised, the one thing I have noticed this year recently, some projects that we did recently advertise, our estimates are actually getting closer in line to what those estimates we're getting from contractors. If we have competition, gotta have competition. If we have competition, we're gonna get some better bid prices. And I've been seeing things getting a little bit better, but our estimates, we also increased them because we knew that they were gonna be higher. But like I said, I think things are, right now, they're more in line like they were maybe 5 years ago, but it is costing us more because of labor, material costs.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had 20 minutes to get the 20 more slides. I'm working fast here. They know I'm a talker. And then the last one, just another expanded one. Okay, so this one is the new 10G report. So this is estimated cost increased by more than 10 million from the preliminary estimate or by more than 100% from the preliminary estimate. So this was the Westminster project, which we just completed. And one of the things that I just wanted to make clear, this was a project where the preliminary estimate was done in 2016. We were hoping to advertise it in 2019, 2020. This is one of those projects that we were talking about having to move out because of other interstate projects that were happening, such as Rockingham, these other projects. It kept on being moved out in the budget for construction. Well, by the time it got advertised, first of all, we only had one bidder, but we knew that we needed to move forward with it. And when they got out there, the condition of that structure had gotten much worse. So they had to add like $7-8 million more worth of work to the project itself to do it right. So that's one of the reasons why there was such a differential from the preliminary. So I just wanted to kind of like sometimes it is a flaw. Sometimes it's just because we've had to push those preliminary estimates, we thought they were good at the time. And we included extra stuff in there, but when projects get delayed, it can cost us more money at the end of the day. Okay. Okay, State Highway Bridge Program, tab 5C, $77.9 million, 85 projects funded, 43 projects funded for construction, including 20 ER projects. We have 9 of those BM projects, State Highway, and there's 26 permanent ER projects. So the spending has increased from last year by 13.4 million, and that has to do a lot with the additional ER projects. Some of these ER projects that are funded for construction, those projects in 26 may be advertised in FY26, but maybe not even fully constructed until the summer of 27, like after. But we have those. The Reedsboro Bridge project, we hope to spend $10 million on that this year. That's a project that we advertised twice. Finally got a bidder. The Worcester Elmer project includes 4 structures. We were spending $10.3 million in FY26. We still have the rehab of the Quechua Gorge Bridge, $8.3 million. The Pittsford Bridge on US 7, there's another $4.6 million to be spent. And then we have a project in Searsburg on Route 9 and a bridge in Rockingham on Route 5 that has some spending to be had. Last year, we had the Irisburg Emergency Project. Just want to quickly highlight that. This is the bridge that the beam got burned, like big fire. It was bad, had to close the road. We had a new bridge in there in less than 6 months. This bridge originally was only 20 years old to begin with, so we had to replace it. So those kind of things happen. Just,
I'm seeing the steel got bent there.
yeah, oh, it got bent, and we actually
Hammered
have some
down.
of the steel is being tested.
It got hot.
It got hot, yeah, it was hot. So we've got several 10G projects. I won't get into it, but most of them are BM projects. And we have 5 new ER projects from the past flood in this past summer. Like I said, there's a lot of them here, but most of them are ER projects or BM projects. So completed projects, we had Barry, Berlin, Chester, Coventry, Fairfield, Groton, Royalton, and one of those Worcester Bridge projects, we had to pull out of our original project and get it done last summer, and we did. So our 10G expanded costs on the state highway system, it's actually pretty good. There's only one project that is estimated, its estimate is 5 million higher, and it's a culvert project in Essex Town on Route 2A. The initial estimate was low. We didn't consider a lot of the multiple complexities of the project. So once we really had a better idea of what that scope of the project we have a better estimate. So that's the increase there. And then the 10G expanded costs, there was one, you'd see Hanover, New Hampshire, Norwich, Vermont, which was a rehab that we really don't have much control over. Those estimates are done by the state of New Hampshire. We're responsible for 31% of the share on that particular bridge project. So it is what it is. The Quechee Gorge Bridge, that is one, again, where we had one bid, we advertised it again, it came in a lot higher, but due to the condition of the structure, we felt necessary that we needed to move forward and accept that bid, and it's under construction right now. The Reedsboro project, it's the same thing. We had the preliminary estimate was for 2019. We advertised the project in 22. We had one bidder. We had planned to stage construction. The bid came in too high, so we said, let's take a step back. We redesigned it, sent it out. Our estimate was, the estimate that we used when we went out at contract plans was actually very close to what that estimate was from our low bidder. It just didn't match what our original intent was back in 2017, 18. Searsburg was a change in the scope of the project. It was supposed to be originally a replacement of a pipe, and it turned into a bridge. And then Springfield, it's the same thing that started as a BM project. And they were going to do an invert repair, but it's moved into my program as a full bridge for replacement. So the original preliminary estimate is definitely not the same as what we're proposing on doing at this point. So lastly, we have our town highway bridge program, 37.8 million. This is tab 14. We have 52 projects funded, 18 projects funded for construction, and we have about 23 projects still in the scoping phase. It's down $7.2 million or 16% from last year. And I won't go through all of these, but we have many bridges throughout the state that are going to be, construction's going to start this year or be advertised in the summer for construction in the summer of 26. Just a quick update, because everyone loves the Bridgeboro Hinsdale project, especially Representative Burke.
There at the opening.
I know, so I just wanted to share, this project the contract will be completed in June. They still got to do, seeding, mulching, all that good stuff. But it is a beautiful bridge. It was $61 million construction project, and Vermont paid 20% of the construction cost.
That's the real nice thing about it is we didn't have to.
We didn't have to pay for a lot of it, so it was a nice thing,
It's
exactly.
gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. So this is kind of a highlight for everyone. So for 10G new projects, we've added 2 projects, Rockingham and Winooski. The Rockingham project is an extension of the existing Rockingham project, We are gonna have a separate contract to remove the existing bridge. And the Winooski is a utility relocation that's affiliated with the Burlington Winooski Bridge Project. Completed projects was Ludlow Village and Pulteney. And then our 10G expanded cost, the Burlington Winooski project, increase in cost reflects definitely a more refined construction estimate, and it increased by 17 million. This is a project that it is on, it's the town of Winooski and the city of Burlington, both cities have a share in that. It's a design build project. It has a raise grant associated with it. It needs to be construction funds have to be obligated by September 2026. And the grant is about $25 million that we got, but the project itself is a lot more than that. DMB, we just changed the scope. We went from a rehab to full bridge replacement. So that is why the estimate is higher. And this is where the preliminary estimate, 10 million from the preliminary estimate, or by more than 100% preliminary estimate. The Hartford Bridge project, which is the VA cutoff bridge, that preliminary plan estimate was developed in 2020, and our contract doesn't increase prior advertisement, and the low bidder was within just a couple million from our actual estimate. It was higher, but that was it was advertised in 2021. We had the COVID, lack of labor. But that project is complete just about, so that's good news. And then we had a pedestrian bridge. For some reason that slide didn't get updated. Okay. And just real quick, the Accelerated Bridge Program, we've had 116 ABC projects since 2012. 45% of all the projects were in my program. 224 million in construction costs and 96% on-time bridge openings. And this doesn't quite show up, but this is all the projects that we have. It's hard to see. And just the number of road closures, just to benefit next summer, we do have several projects that are going to involve road closures throughout the state. Some are short, 45 days, some weekend closures, the whole season, 4 weeks, 40 days. So we have a lot going on next summer that will be under construction. And then these are all the ER projects from 23 and 24. Just highlight, this was a bridge on 100B in Moortown. Before, during, and after, we put in a temporary bridge. In St. Johnsbury on Route 2, this was before, during, and after putting in that temporary bridge there. And this is in Linden on 114, before, during, and after. And then some of our completed projects, we had the Fairfield Bridge, which was a deck replacement before and after. Worcester, before and after. Grafton is on an FAS route on Vermont 121 before. This was it before and now after, and it's took a couple years to build that one. And then we did do some historic covered bridge in Clarendon before and after. And then here in Ludlow Village, they decided to disinvest their bridge to traffic. It had been closed for a while, and we replaced it with a pedestrian bridge. And this was a highlight of the summer with Royalton on Vermont 14. This was a railroad bridge, an NECR railroad bridge, our state highway underneath, bridge over. This was before, as you can see, it's a pretty dangerous roadway. They actually, this was during construction. They built the new bridge, and now we have a much safer roadway, etc. And then finally, the cutoff bridge is where we had a historic deck through trust here that we ended up realigning the road, built the new bridge, reconnected to Vermont 14. And I'm pretty sure most of the existing bridges removed at this point, and they're just finishing up. Traffic's on the new bridge. People are very happy. Coventry was a quick, this actually got so bad. I think it got worse after the 23 floods. We had it as a project. We were at the point that we were gonna need to close it, but we had the issue of the Irisburg, same road. We had that bridge, that road closed due to that bridge, so we quickly did this in the spring to replace this culvert. As you can see, there was nothing left to the culvert right here, and replaced it with a new box. And that's my program. 4 minutes left. I
Well,
did good.
you certainly did. You certainly
And I'm sure
did.
you have lots of
I'm sure
questions.
we can fill up that 4 minutes.
I'm sure you can.
And I will start, I guess, when I look at your, how much should I read into when I look at projected 27, 28, 29? I look at state highway bridges and I flip to town highway bridges. And, we started on interstate bridges and I see numbers that are in 77 million now and 38 million that drops to 24 and 77 going all the way down to 40. What is that? How much stock should I put in that and what should I be concerned about? Is that just not having gotten things all projected out yet on the bridges, or are we truly planning that we're going to be spending that much less money on projects? What should I read into?
You should read into it as we're trying to, I think if you look at the interstate program, I think that increased a little bit.
Yeah, it didn't go down anywhere near as much as the others.
Right. And so we're looking at, the recommendation is to reduce each of those programs a little bit because of, you want to talk a little bit more about it, Jeremy, or?
Yeah, no, this is absolutely fine. So, Jeremy, Chief Engineer. So what you see is a combination of two things. One, the expiration of the ER funds, right? So those projects will, so you will see a significant drop just because we're returning to a normal form of funds. The second thing you're seeing is a bit of a rebalancing of the bridge program. So obviously every budget year is different and I don't want to start projecting 27 budgets per se, but what and I think I've told this committee before, what we're seeing is that our state bridge conditions is in really good shape. The interstate hasn't kept up with that. And the principal reason for that is the floods. So if you go back to Eileen to today, we will have replaced probably, I'll just guess, 100 bridges on the state system where we really haven't replaced any interstate bridges. So you're going to see a bit of a shift from the state bridge system to the interstate system.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that, Karen, because when I hear, that you've told the committee previously, I do make the joke that if I had known I was going to be sitting in this chair, I would have paid better attention. So I try to point to our newer members that you never know what's going to happen. But I'm also very sensitive to a number of the members of the committee are very concerned with town bridges and town highways and how we get from one town to the next and where that spending is at and whether we are going to be able to help our town and municipality. So anything that says town highway, town bridge, town piece, we're going to try to highlight that and make sure we understand what's the long-term picture, because our towns only have the ability to raise property taxes to pay for their bridges and their roads. And we want to keep that pretty high level right in front of us during the conversation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and we have,
Sure,
and
back.
it's exactly, Jeremy's right, but we do have a lot of bridges in the town highway program that we are working on. And they are being construction wise, we're working on, they're gonna, in the program, but we're looking at construction 2031. Because we have other projects that need to use some of those funds as well in the next couple of years. And so we're just we actually looked really hard at our bridge program this year. I think it's the hardest that I've ever looked at it. Spencer Howard from our asset management group, he and I really evaluated, what bridges can we move out that we think can, last another few years. Does this bridge need to be replaced next year because the condition is poor? Or can we push that out a few more years? So we really looked hard at the program and where we can place these projects that we have programmed right now. We haven't programmed, the only new projects that have been programmed since I came into this job, since 2022, has been the ER projects. Besides the projects that were programmed in 22, we have those. And that was the last time we programmed a lot of new projects. And then we have the ER project. So that's all we've done because that's what our capacity, that's what we can do. We have a great design staff We work hard together and we also have consultants do some of our work as well. Because we don't have enough people to do all the work.
And I'd also like to mention that being as visible as it is on the web, being able to click on projects, being accessible to talk to people certainly helps for transparency perspective in terms of at least being able to try to understand what's happening. So we appreciate all the work to make it publicly available.
And we try to keep it up to date as, you know,
Thank you. Representative Couch?
Yeah, thank you. I would say the same thing. I mean, the website's pretty good. You can pretty much find what you're looking for. That's, I think more people need to know that it's there for their use. As we look out, and maybe, this isn't the time to ask this question, but as we look out, you know, these projects, you know, 4 or 5 years, nothing for some of these bigger projects. Are we starting to see now the IIJA funds start, you know, are we assuming that the federal highway funding will continue at a rate, rather not another increase, but maybe at the rate? That's one question. And are there ever times when you're building out these longer term budgets where you're saying we don't have the matching funds? So are those impacting our longer term projects?
So I can speak to both of those.
Yeah.
Representative. So our initial today's projections are based on level funding, just because as Costa discussed last week, we have no idea what the federal reauthorization. So we did not put in, you know, some sort of inflation sort of coefficient there. Likewise, we did not predict the reduction. Now, as far as state funds, again, not knowing what transportation revenues will be, you know, JDOT transfers, purchase and use, we're just assuming we will have state fund match for every federal fund that's available.
Okay.
And I think historically we've managed to do that one way or another, because we certainly don't want to ever send federal funds back.
Yeah.
The other variable to my previous point, but is also applicable to your question, the other thing that these do not reflect are potential grants, and we do have some that we are very optimistic for. We are looking for supplementary funding for the Burlington Williams Ski Bridge, right? So that could change, you know, sort of that funding split. We're certainly looking for grant funding for the Springfield project that Carolyn mentioned, and also those Richmond projects. So those, from a bridge perspective, are the 3 grant opportunities that we're very optimistic about. And if we do in fact receive those, that could fundamentally change some of the proportioning between the different programs.
Yeah, okay, just want to build on that, going back to the municipalities, which is a big topic of mine anyways this year, is, so we're assuming, hey, we're gonna get the state money for as much federal money as is available. And is that true not only for the federal highways and state highways, but for municipal projects too, where there's federal money to sort of, are they looked at on an even keel, or are they second tier to the other projects?
No, it's looked at in the same way. So Burlington Winooski, as I mentioned, actually is in the Town Highway Bridge Program.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is when that project gets to construction, you'll see in those fiscal years that there's probably a fairly good increase in the Town Highway Bridge Program, largely attributed to just that project.
yeah, we treat everything equal. It's really about the condition of the bridge. It's about the asset. You know, if that asset is poor, is getting worse, and that bridge is in the Town Highway Bridge Program, we're gonna focus on making sure we get that bridge constructed. If it's on the interstate, we'll focus on that. So it's the assets that we focus on. You know, we haven't done, like I said, we haven't programmed any new state highway, Town Highway Bridge projects since 22 through the BPSP2. And that's all based on condition and RPCs and town and all that stuff. Everything goes into a program, and they pop up these projects. So, you know, technically everything's on an equal footing, but at the end of the day, it also depends on our budget and what our future budget looks like and what we can add to the program. We also, one of the things I didn't mention, but we are really focused on the bridge maintenance dollars this year and using that money in fiscal year 26, and we're programming projects in 27 to fix these bridges that are on the interstate and the state highway system. If it needs a new back wall or a new bearing or a new joint, we try to get those programs so that we can get that bridge to last another 5-10 years. Does it need to be membrane and paved? We're going to go out and do that if we can. It's critical to keep the infrastructure, specifically really on the interstate, to keep it going. We have been, we have a lot of bridges on the interstate that we really do, that we need to get in the program, because as you kind of notice, I mean, and Rob said, it's 5 to 7 years, right, to get a bridge from start to finish. So if it takes 5 to 7 years, and we know that asset's gonna be, it's only good for another 10, 15 years, we need to get it programmed sooner so that we can start working on the design. So that when the time comes and we can get it, the construction funds to build that. So we try our best.
And we appreciate that. Anybody else have anything?
And you can always reach out to me. And if you have a question about one of your bridges, et cetera, reach out to me. And if I don't have an answer, I know who has the answer. So I will relay that information.
Oh,
Carolyn, are you doing the bike ped one in Burlington across 89?
I am not involved in that. That is actually the city of South Burlington. That's their baby. And they actually got grants to build that. And I don't think we have it. We have.
Just a pass through.
We're just a pass through, right?
Heard that this morning,
Yeah.
yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
And
I'll let Joel come up here.
we'll transfer it over to, if Joel's gonna take the hot seat next. Oh, well, you would fit with- if you,
I should get brownie points for
you
that.
should get, you'll have to carry your colleague.
Joel, can you not just plug in?
Yeah, do you
Try
have
that first.
HDMI?
Try to just plug in first.
Oh, I don't need to join the meeting?
No, you
No,
don't need
if you have an HDMI.
Oh,
Yeah, you can plug in.
Maybe it's a little bit easier.
I can do that.
This was helpful though.
You start digging into your.
I did with a 25 for one on the shelf, yeah.
Not today, but we will do that.
You don't want it.
You know,
It's really exciting reading.
oh,
There will be a
Goodness.
test.
well. White book, we spent a lot more time in than the green one.
And Chair, if you're looking for 15 minutes of filler sometime, I'd be happy to walk the committee through the transparency as well.
Okay.
That would be.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Jenna's making a note of that right now. We'll leave that in our agenda for the future. Invite Jeremy back to walk us through V transparency.
There's so much in there.
How are we looking, Joel?
Well, I'm plugged in, that's why I need to do something different to get.
No.
He should allow you to
It should
share.
allow.
We'll see. Carolyn's gotten it down, so we'll ask her to help.
Did you join the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was told that you should join the meeting and should be. Someone said last week there were some issues. That's why I tried to be prepared.
It's been a theme all the way through. I don't know.
Technology is on its issues.
I mean, as long as they're done live, plugging in works the best.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
used to.
For some reason.
In failure.
I'm gonna resend you the Zoom link.
Okay.
Yeah, last week, plug in and fine.
Maybe we should just go with that. I don't know.
Oh, is it, when I plug in, is it like a dual screen thing though that I might have? Oh, that might be it.
Yeah, the display, and that is what's on it.
Somebody said you had to drag it over.
That's what I wondered, yeah.
You drag it over, it catches it. I don't know.
Give it a second. It takes.
Yeah.
Save.
Is it doing it?
Jenna, it said participant screen sharing was disabled.
I think I gotta join the meeting. Did you send a new link? Okay. You did?
Yeah, it worked.
It's down by the time the session's over.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be good next
We'll figure it
year. Oh, you're not connected to the Wi-Fi.
Well, I was.
Um, I'm gonna leave my laptop in my.
Well, I had a kid sitting over there and then all of a sudden it says, yeah. It's like, all right, so yesterday I had to do a restart and send it. And it worked. So I'm gonna try that, but it might take a few minutes. Is that all right?
You might
We're here for
unplug
you.
the HDMI if you're not using that.
Yeah.
You have any more questions for me?
Well, if I was gonna ask a question, I'd say, how about that bridge in Swanton over the Missisquoi River that everybody's complaining about the potholes and somebody do a temporary fix on that and then, you know.
Is that the one- is that
Didn't
the
they
one-
do it last year? Didn't they do some fixing for it?
Oh, you're talking about on the interstate?
On the interstate, right over the river, just
The
after the exit.
You're doing
Just
a-
south of the
Yeah,
exit
we are
21.
doing, one of them, we are doing some work on, and the other one, there's supposed to be a paving project that's gonna take care of that.
They're going all the way to are they going all the way to the border or just all the way to 21? I can't remember. But I think that's why it came off, right? Because you're gonna pick it up.
Yeah.
In the paving, of the
Yeah.
new paving
Yeah.
northbound of the interstate.
I thought you were talking right downtown.
Now there's,
Because the town did some work on one town.
The downtown one, they did quite a project, close the road and, now they're just. The next section of it's been going up, but over the interstate, I got complaints on that exit.
yeah, so that is,
Saying that the top of that one was
I'll
bad.
follow,
I wouldn't ask you except that we're filling time.
yeah, well, no, so tomorrow when Matt comes in, you can get that confirmed as far as the paving project, but I'm pretty positive we took those off that BM projects were off because they're paving them.
And the big Milton project over the interstate bridge that you put all the new put the beams, I guess you back and put the deck on
They'll
in
be
the
doing,
spring.
as soon as
Will that be
they,
a 4-lane bridge now on the top, or what's that gonna look like on top of that one? Is that?
That's
is
the
it
one, the Grand Mile.
The Grand
I
Island
think it
Bridge?
is, I'm trying to.
Does the old bridge go away, or does that
Old
also?
bridge is gonna be gone, the old bridge is gone.
All
So-
brand new bridge,
So what their
not
hope is,
usable.
their hope is to get that deck on, and they'll have that on as soon as they can.
Yeah.
And
We're
then
talking access 17.
Yeah.
17, is that 4 lanes on the top of that on the?
I suspect it will be about 4 lanes, because they're gonna have,
Turning lanes anyway.
yeah, so it will be.
Somebody asked me that question today, and I guess I don't know.
And they're redoing the slip lanes, too. They're redoing the exit, the
Right.
ramps and stuff, so
So when you're coming north,
Big project.
what's
when
it
you're
gonna
coming
look
north,
like?
there's gonna be more length, so that you
But
don't
you
have
still-
cars sitting on the
You won't,
interstate.
it won't be just a right though, you still have to make some kind of, will the traffic flow be substantially different than it is today?
Believe it will. I think it will look more like, you know how we changed Waterbury a number of years ago? And reduced it from 2 slip lanes on to 1 slip lane on?
Yeah.
I think it'll be like that.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure, but it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm an optimist.
Better.
Do you want me to sketch out what the
So,
two D?
Yeah.
so, I mean, think about that Richmond Bridge that you like so. Cute. That goes over. That was my project.
There you go.
And then if you look at the Checker House Bridge project,
Oh, that was a beauty.
Isn't
I love
that
I
beauty?
love that.
this project was that. Wow.
Every time I go over it, I love it.
Yeah. it's- The original.
Waiting.
My computer's off now. I could have, I could have stayed, but. Any other questions for me? You know?
Overall, you feel good about the safety of the bridges on the interstate is what you're.
Yeah, because I drive that.
So they have to be good.
Yeah.
No, I think,
Yeah.
go
And
ahead.
I would just say, you know, and this has a lot of factors, but Cost and I were speaking the other day, and believe it or not, from a bridge condition perspective, right, so the national standard is percent of deck in very poor condition. And generally, the performance standard is less than 10%. We are generally on either side of 3 to 5%. Now they're changing the standard this year, so we're probably gonna see a pretty big uptick. That being said, I can comfortably say we're in the top 10% nationally. We have huge changes and our other states are like, wow, how'd you get there, right? A lot of it is the flood, you know,
They forced us to deal with it.
Yes.
But you know, from a bridge condition perspective, I think we're, from a national perspective, a bridge.
Do you have new computers put in your budget?
Okay.
I probably do. This one's been kicking around a while.
Good point.
Well, Joe, put new computers every year.
That's sort of a 5-year cycle.
It's really good to me.
Quite a while. Very close.
Oh, you are very close.
You know, actually, we've seen all those temporary bridges that were talking about yesterday. What is an incentive to the town? I don't know, to renting them back to them, you know, and it's a huge lift for them to replace them. We seem like the idea of temporary could be, the definition of temporary could extend out quite an awful
Wow,
lot.
and that hasn't certainly
Yeah,
happened.
Now,
Yeah,
share
I
your,
was just
share
sharing
your
it.
presentation.
That's happened. I mean, we've had temporaries needing to replace better temporaries.
Make sure your mic is off
With
and
that, so
your,
we're not, like,
Sounds.
there's an implied intent there that like you're gonna move a project forward, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way.
What about you talked about it a number of times before, I kind of remember how much the technology had changed in building the bridges, are we that much better at it now than we were 20 years ago? And, you know, the way that, or is it, sometimes I wonder, I see technology as, boy, it seems like it's the same pavement on the same road, the same way forever. And then other times you hear talking about how these pre-made sections and how quickly you're able to replace the deck. It seems like the technology is not necessarily consistent across the idea that why does the structure and why does the infrastructure of the whole place seem like we're not faster, better at it? You know, like the technology, the pavement's still the pavement, it still wears out. It's not that there hasn't been a product that's been made that it's gonna last forever, you know?
It is, I mean, I think we can comfortably say in the bridge world, it's a lot better, right? A lot of people say, hey, you know, this bridge was built in 1928 after the 27 flood and it's still going strong. You know, why haven't you done better? But they forget that that bridge wasn't exposed to salt and ice. Or wasn't exposed to salt de-icing materials for the first 50 years of its life. And we didn't really start using salt until the 60s. So it's a little bit of an apples type comparison. I mean, we use stainless steel rebar now, our concretes are certainly better, our aggregates are certainly better. But none of us will be around long enough to know it. That's the problem.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll leave you be. Good luck, Joel.
Thank you, Joel. You got a half an hour to take it away.
It'd be just fine, I think so. For the record, I'm Joel Perigo. I am the Municipal Assistance Program Manager for V-Trans. And just to be upfront, there's some municipal programs that show up in the book that have my name on them as a contact, but that was something that was missed. And so you'll have to catch up with Chad Greenwood, and I can put those out to you, Chair, afterwards, which ones those are, if you'd like. But it's generally the town highway structures and class 2 programs. So I'm going to go through some various programs and budgets associated with them. So starting with, and I did try to also label my slides with the tab number. So starting numerically, tab 5F is the first program under which is the Park and Ride program. And more recently, the Park and Ride program has been pretty quiet because we conducted a Park and Ride study back in 2000 and I want to say it was 15 that was completed, and that basically was our roadmap for the next several years and which projects needed to be constructed, where we had our unmet needs and such. And we are nearing the end of those projects with the completion of Sharon and Manchester, which are the last two out to construction this summer. The new Park and Ride plan is basically complete, and I understand it's days away from just being posted to the agency website. That will serve as our roadmap moving forward, identifying unmet needs throughout the state with a focus on Route 100 between Waterbury and Stowe. And then also in the budget, you'll see a few line items. We carry a line item for the development of a future Park and Ride, something were to pop up. There is preventative maintenance for paving of existing Park and Rides. Then we also carry a line item budget for the municipal Park and Ride program. It's a small number, but it serves well because typically we don't get a lot of applications in that program. Usually you're able to meet the need 100% on those. That program was not around for many years, reestablished in fiscal year 22. We funded 2 projects last year, adding 31 spaces, and with the program total, we've added 1,500 different spaces to Park and Ride lots across the state. And again, those are municipally owned and managed lots. The picture to the left is the Williston Park and Ride, which was actually finished last year, but like I said, we didn't have a lot going on this year. So the next tab is 5G, which is the Bike Ped program. And this year's budget, you'll see $21 million, $21.8 million. I will be very transparent that a large portion of that is due to the South Burlington pedestrian bridge over the interstate. There's I think it's $10 million versus that 21 million is with that particular bridge. And that is, of course, supplementary funding or discretionary funding, raised funding that is passed through the agency to the city. So the existing, yeah, that's Shelburne. The existing budget supports 67 ongoing projects in 46 different communities. 34 of them will be under construction during fiscal year 26. The grant program that we've run with Bike Ped, there's 2 components of it. The main component is the federally funded portion of it, which is 80% federal and 20% local. And then we have a portion called the small scale grant program, which is state funded. And we fund that at a 50% state fund and 50% local funds. No design or engineering involved in those. Those are typically meant to be like quick and easy projects, sort of a gap filler for a segment of sidewalk where you may have an ending over here and you're trying to get to the 300 feet down the road. Or we do a lot of RRFB, rapid rectangular flashing beacon installations with curb ramps and those crosswalks and sorts of things like that. That program. So also within that budget, you will see line items that say statewide. There's one for support of our Bike Ped coordinator salary. There's one in there for the local motion bike ferry that we grant to local motion. There's still a line item from an earmark for the LVRT community grants that we were not able to fund out, award out all of the funds for. And then you'll see line items for future funding for annual grant programs, because each year we put out a solicitation, we identify those projects, take some time before they actually get programmed, and then make it into the next version of the book. So we solicit those programs typically at the early onset of summer. I think it's, I want to say maybe April, we announce it somewhere in that time frame, and usually are making those awards in August.
Representative
Just
Pouch?
a question. So in Heinsberg, we've gone through the last 20 years, a number of projects. And what comes up is when we are looking at them, if they're Fed funded, all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of additional things that have to come with them. And I'm guessing the small scale, far less regulatory hurdles. Is there been any work at all to try to we've got a sidewalk section, we might say it's gonna, I don't know, a few $100,000, but because now it's Fed, it has to meet all these other standards. And from what we're hearing is it really drives up the cost quite a bit. I don't know, is that something?
I think that's fair to say. I mean, it definitely extends the schedule, which costs time and money. Even the simple sidewalk projects can be done sort of efficiently with federal funds for sure. But for the most part, because it takes, our NEPA process, going through NEPA review and everything is about a year's worth of time. They have to clear right away. These are constraints that come along with the federal funds that our hands are tied with a bike ped project, just like they are a paving project or a bridge project. So the small scale program has been pretty successful in meeting those small little gap projects. Most years we don't give out, we aren't even getting the demand to give out all the funding a lot of times on the project. So the level that we're funding that, I think we're right where we need to be.
So you're saying on that one, that small scale one, you're not necessarily emptying the funds, where last year we saw on these, a big demand and there was additional funding.
Right, so I want to say it was like 3 or 4 fiscal years ago now. We actually did 2 rounds of that statewide, and we still weren't able to find enough projects to get that money out. So.
Representative Webb?
Yeah, hi. This is my community, the gorgeous bridge. We love it, but it was very expensive. One of the reasons it was very expensive was because of NEPA review and the timing of the pandemic. So it took us 9 years to get here because anyway, it was a disaster for us, for CCRPC, for you guys. It's just a mess. Anyway, we're all very grateful that it's finished. We love it. So that being said, I guess I'm wondering if we have a program that we're having a hard time getting dollars out the door, it's a 50-50, that's still cheaper than going with federal funds and going through NEPA. I'm kind of wondering if there might be some sort of way to advertise that and put that in terms that select boards who are, when they're doing their capital planning, could understand. I bet there would be a lot more, demand for using those defederalized dollars for projects if people understood what was at stake if you have to accept federal dollars and go through NEPA. So just putting that out there as an idea for you guys.
I appreciate that. It's a very good point. We do have in place some pretty good cost estimating resources, but I will be the first to admit that some of them are a little bit outdated at this point, especially given the most recent inflationary, costs that we've seen. And the best resource we do have is working with, so we have a staff member assigned to each of the grant programs, and their phone is always available for communities when it goes, and we do an outreach and we have been doing, I'm trying to think of like a workshop with each of the programs when we announce them. So there's a time where there's a 2-hour period where people can come, municipalities can come and ask questions. And we do try to cover a lot of what you're saying, like, think about this, the fact that you got 50% match over here, but you're not going to have all these other additional costs, 20% match over here, but it's going to take you, 3 years longer, much more permitting, all these right-of-way impacts and things like that. So, but point well taken. Yeah.
Anybody else?
This is a list, and these are all available on our websites for each of the programs that I'll be showing today. But this is the list of the awards we made last summer through the Bike Ped program. And I'll just quickly sort of explain what each of these different categories is. Additional funds is exactly what it sounds like. It's additional funds for a project that was already in the program. This particular one is the Ninja Path down in Bennington. And then the next grouping is the large scale design and construction projects. So these are new projects coming into the program that are going to be, they'll have that PE right away construction phases in the book. And then scoping projects are projects that end at a preferred alternative. We award, I'll say 100% scoping projects. There are a few times where the project's not eligible, but for the most part, if it's eligible, it will be funded as a scoping project. And that basically gets the town started on the right foot. They know they want to put a sidewalk from point A to point B. They hire a design consultant. They go through the scoping effort. They find out the best way to get to point A to B, what that sidewalk looks like. They would identify environmental resources and potentially like utility conflicts and things of that nature. And in the end, they had enough for alternative, a concept for what that project looks like, a very conceptual cost estimate, but then also are a foot up on the application process for the next phase, which would be a design and construction project. And then the last section is those small scale state funded projects.
On the scoping, now we use the RPC and they've provided scoping. Is that part of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's those
Yes.
scoping.
So some, I'll say, yeah, quite often the RPC typically is not the one that, they have done some, I will say, they've done some actually of the actual scoping effort, but a lot of times the RPC acts as the project manager on behalf of the town, and they would still hire an engineering firm to go through that scoping effort.
Representative Rowland, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what is the top what is the top award for the small scale project?
150,000 total, so set 75,000 to the municipality. State funds, and then they have 75,000 on that.
That's
Yes.
okay, great, thanks.
I'm gonna confirm that after this though.
I was just wondering, because there's one in Rutland that says 226,600, but maybe they were.
But you'll see that says the award, yeah, so it is, so the state award was 75,000.
Okay,
So,
they would have come with funds from other sources.
Yes.
Got it,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
so that does confirm what it did. The next program is on tab 5H, is the Transportation Alternatives Program, which has sort of a sister component in the fact that we do a lot of bike ped projects with transportation alternatives. Under transportation alternatives, which is a set aside, so these are funds that come to the agency that have to be used on transportation alternative eligible projects. There's 7 eligible categories. And I've sort of listed the categories here, but you have your bike ped related, rail trail conversions, turnouts and overlooks, viewing areas. I think scenic byways are also in that group, community development and historic preservation, and also environmental mitigation. IIJA doubled the set aside for this program. We traditionally had been around $2.2 million. And IIJA doubled that up to about 4.3. We are statutorily capped on these projects as far as the maximum award. The transportation bill 2 years ago included some notwithstanding language to raise the cap to $600,000. That's what it's at right now. So,
Representative Brooke?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One is that this money for the bike ped was supposedly also spent in the 2025 budget. Is that correct?
I'm not understanding, I guess, the question.
See, I thought that when we heard this last year, that the $4 million or whatever plus $1 million from the IIJA was supposed to be spent in the 2025, budget, right? Not all, it's not carrying.
Well, so we've included, are you talking about the carbon reduction funding?
Yeah.
Okay. The carbon reduction funding, let me back up, is included in awards that we made in the bike ped program last year.
Right.
Except that we didn't get enough eligible projects to use the entire $4 million. And I don't know what the exact number is, but it was close to 3 million, I think we made awards on. One of them is the Ninja Path in Bennington. So that additional 1.95 million is carbon reduction funding. This Middlebury project, the 1.092 is carbon reduction funding. And the last one is escaping me. I don't know.
So basically, that
But it's-
funding has been able to carry over.
And the intent was to make the additional, whatever the catch up is in this next round, which would be this coming summer.
And then
Yes.
the other question, just sort of out of curiosity, the issue on Black Mountain Road. Is that because I think there aren't any houses on that section of Black Mountain Road? Is another way to get there? There's a discontinuation of 1,000 feet Black Mountain Road.
I don't know. Where are
Am I in the
you?
wrong place here? Where are we looking? We're out of our scoping study to fix Black Mountain Road. I looked somewhere else and I think it was on here to discontinue the section. of Black Mountain.
I'll have to look into
Okay.
that.
I'm just sort of curious. I think there are no houses there, and I think maybe there's another route to get there. Maybe that not, there might have been some culvert problems there.
Okay. I'll look into that.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the other piece of the TA is that statute requires the agency to reserve half of the funding for that environmental mitigation category and the other half to all of the other eligible categories with a preferential weighting for the bike ped projects. So when you go down to the award list, you will see that in these descriptions that some of them will sound like bike ped type projects and some of them, half of them will sound more like those environmental mitigation projects. And so, and then at the bottom, there is a list for the municipal highway and stormwater mitigation program projects, which is we did this in combination with the TA solicitation this year. Because the eligibility for those projects is the one and the same, which is, I don't actually have it here, but it falls under that environmental mitigation category. We did one solicitation and just put all of the money into that one grant round. The next program is on tab 6, which is rest areas. Very quiet in the rest area business right now. Majority of the funding you'll see in there was for replacing of stone paver walkways in Guilford. And then there's a statewide paving line item in the budget. But we are currently working with BGS to identify other priority projects that would show up in the next year's budget. Next programs are the major program is on tab 19, which is the Town Highway Aid Program. And so this is the program that towns receive quarterly payments based on their certified mileage of classes 1, 2, and 3 town highways. So each year, towns go through an exercise where they certify their mileage. Class 1, 2, 3, and I think they may certify class 4, even though it doesn't receive any aid. And this is the appropriation that goes out to all the municipalities and quarterly payments. Last year's appropriation was 29.5. And this year, the request is 30.4 million. There is statutory language associated with the incremental increase in this. It's very confusing. And our CFO goes through this and comes up with this number.
I think last year, yeah, I think we changed it a little bit just to make sure it was following inflation, maybe a little closer.
So I thought it was changed last year, and I went and looked online version as I was putting this together, and it looked very similar to me, but maybe it hasn't been updated online or something, but
We'll find
yeah.
out.
And then tab 20 is, it is a supplemental to this, and this is just, in areas like South Burlington where there's downtown, class 1 town highways that have more than one lane. So in those areas, South Burlington would receive a little bit more additional funding for the class 1s. The next is tab 22, which is in the book is just a line item. It's not broken out into these categories. And so I tried to go into a little bit more detail here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot here. Actually, 2 slides for this particular. Under this municipal mitigation assistance program, there's actually 3 separate grant programs. 2 of them are state funded, and they are the Better Roads and Grants and Aid program. The primary focus and goals of these programs is to assist municipalities with their compliance with the municipal roads general permit. In Better Roads, this year's budget, there's $2.19 million. 440,000 of that is transportation funds, and the remainder is 1.75 is coming from the Clean Water Fund. The 440 in transportation funds traditionally has gone to what we call Category B projects, which are in-stream culvert replacement projects. Smaller scale, 36 inches and larger, but typically not rising to the level of a box culvert. Something that usually a municipality can complete the work on their own with their own public works forces. The 1.75 million, 1 million of that is intended to be what we call Category B projects, which are your best management practices that are assisting the communities with complying with the municipal roads general permit. It is bringing your gravel roads up to grade, putting in the proper crown, proper ditching, whether that be stone lined or grass lined, depending on the slope, disconnection practices, cross culverts, stone check dams, everything that the permit requires is funded under this program. And then the additional $750,000 that came through the Clean Water Fund, or will come through the Clean Water Fund, is intended to be for the road erosion inventories, which is also a requirement of the municipalities under the municipal roads general permit. When the permit was reauthorized, I think it was 2 years ago now, the methodology for those road erosion inventories was finagled. And most of the towns had to go out and do a new inventorying of those hydrologically connected road segments. And that's what that $750,000 is helping with. We received $1 million worth last year. This hopefully will complete the cycle, and every municipality will have gotten some funding for it to complete those road erosion inventories. The second program is Grants and Aid program, again, Clean Water funded. This program, because it's based on hydrologically connected road mileage, it's awarded to municipalities in a formula. So we put the solicitation out in the springtime, and based on the total amount of money, we have $3 million. There's a certain amount of road mileage. Each town has a piece of that. We offer them an initial offer, and the towns have a period of time to say whether they want to participate in the program that year or not. They send us a letter of intent, and based on the numbers of letters that we receive back, we reformulate the dollars and send out the final offers. Towns have 1 fiscal year to complete the work. Again, it's all related to MRGP compliance. In fiscal year 25, 235 of 260 municipalities covered by the MRGP received funding. The last program under the Municipal Mitigation Assistance Program is the Municipal Highway and Stormwater Mitigation Program, which is federally funded, intended to be larger scale projects. Stormwater treatment and planning, upsizing of culverts and salt sheds. The picture on the left is of Duxbury. That was actually funded through this program. It was that's on Campbell's Hump Road. So it's a reconstruction of that road. We utilize technical staff from A&R to evaluate the applications on these, given its connection to clean water funding. Because we report this as clean water. Each year we work with DEC to report all the money that we've invested through our grant programs into clean water type projects, and that is captured in the Clean Water Investment Report each year, including this program. Grants and Aid program and the Better Roads program.
Yeah, can I just ask, are these the source of these clean water funds, is this CPA? Or where do we get?
So that is a better question for somebody like Emily Bird in the Clean Water Investment Program. But they are state dollars. The state, it's a state, yes.
Yeah. Didn't realize that. Good.
Yeah. The final piece under the Municipal Mitigation Program is actually our stormwater utility fees that we pay to the various municipalities for our portion of roads causing stormwater runoff in the MS4 communities. That's it as far as the programs. And then into the 10G reports. So you've heard a lot about this already. So these are new bike ped program or bike ped projects that are new to the program this year. So these are projects that we made awards to over since the last book, and they're new to the program. This is just a continuation of the list. These are the list of transportation alternatives projects new to the program this fiscal year. And then 3 new municipal park and ride projects that are new. This is the 10G report where if the project cost increased by more than $5 million or 75% from the estimated fiscal year 25. I will say with most of our projects, the reason for that being is that they received a supplemental award. So in the book, you only see the cost that the agency has granted funds for. So if a town has a supplementary funding source, it's not represented in their budget. So, but if they came back to us for a second award, which happens quite often, and that jumped up, that's typically why they would show up in this list. The South Burlington project, it was a supplemental, because that funding is being passed through the agency. It also shows up in our budget. They received additional award, and that's why that jumped up the way it did.
Okay, we're just about.
Yeah, and
on the floor. Everybody's got we have to. Where do you got anything quick at the very end?
Yeah, it's just I'll just quick. It's just the last 2 lists here are the projects coming off the books from this year, because they were completed or potentially canceled. Those are the other ones. Like you'll see as a 0 expended amount. That's probably because that project was canceled. Same with another 0 there, or some small numbers. We have had some cancellations. So, and that is it.
5 or 10 minutes on the beginning of the presentations. We squeezed it in at the end.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep working on that. Joel, thank you. This is generally, as I would comment, an area that's very popular amongst people on the committee as far as helping their towns on lots of little projects. And Joel is generally popular with committee members in terms of how he's able to help a lot of the smaller towns and pieces. So
And I think we're coming back next week already to talk about, to do a deeper dive into the municipal mitigation area. So
excellent.
hear more.
Thank you all very much. So you can all get to floor. We are adjourned for today. Thank you.